Why don't you take them around the neighborhood and try to sell them? I'll let you keep the money. You know how the story ends, right? The two enthusiastic children sell the tickets. Dad lets them keep the money. Then he takes them to Astroworld. Except it didn't happen that way. We kept the money from our sales. But Dad never took us to Astroworld. Mom took us later, though. Maybe it was those kinds of disappointments that eventually pushed some of my siblings away from Dad. I had a brother, 2 sisters, and an older half-sister from Dad's first marriage. They weren't comfortable with our father's intensity and expectations. Some eventually had problems with him, and one grew to despise him. I idolized my dad. Idolized him. I ate up every word of advice he ever gave me, even when I was no higher than his Texas-sized belt buckle. If Dad said sell, I sold. Dad didn't own the food brokerage. That was just a job. His first business was a billboard company. Then he founded an insurance business. Not an insurance office, but a whole company. He didn't hit it big, though, until the early 1970s, when I was 12 or 13 years old. Dad loved rushing into new ventures, but he wasn't much for the drudgery of slowly building profits. He probably made a few fortunes in those early years, but he'd take what he earned and plow it into a new business, and he lost exactly as many fortunes as he gained. Dad didn't care. As long as you can sell, no matter how broke you are at the moment, you'll be fine in the end. Then Dad put in a bid for the last radio license available in the city of Houston. The government owned the license, and at least in theory, they were legally required to issue it to the person who would best serve the public interest. The other bidders had more experience and money, not to mention better contacts, but Dad had something they didn't: a good idea. They wanted to play music. Dad wanted to start the first all-news radio station in Texas. To the surprise of just about everyone but himself, Dad was granted the license. It had taken him 7 years of work. The very next day, or so it seems in my memory, he went out and started selling advertising for the station. Have I mentioned that Dad could sell? If they say no, he told me, that's just because they don't have enough information yet, so keep talking until they say yes. The radio station was a success, so Dad moved the family from Houston to a dusty ranch in the rolling hill country 30 miles away. He bought a few head of cattle, for show, and a mile-long Lincoln. Soon after, he came home wearing a ring with a yellow diamond so big it made my eyes pop. God, I wish I had that ring now. Mom, on the other hand, was the quintessential 1960s Texas housewife, washing, cooking, taking care of everyone. She said being married to Don Wigginton was like living in the shade of an oak tree. Mom was right. Dad was 100 feet tall and impervious to storms. In Dad's shadow, Mom's lovely qualities seemed to disappear. He was my hero. Dad woke up every morning at 7 to work on projects, mostly ideas for new businesses or manual labor on the ranch. He made all his children wake up to help him. Even I grumbled when I heard, "Sun's up, days are wasting." But that didn't keep me from working until I dropped. By 12, I was following Dad on sales calls. By 14, I was doing office work at the insurance company, filing, mailing form letters, that kind of thing. At 15, I started selling radio advertising. I had to generate my own leads, but Dad was always planting seeds. "I saw you looking at that necklace in the jewelry store," he said. "If you go sell them some ads, they might give you a discount." "Yes, sir, Dad." It only took me a few months to buy that necklace, on discount, because I was selling myself to them, too, and paid for with my cut of their advertising account.